Okay. Welcome, everybody. As you come in, we'll give everybody a few minutes here, just a couple minutes while they join on Facebook Live and come into the webinar room. Just a reminder for everyone, if you missed the recording, the webinar last week that Lisa did about storage units, I can always share that recording. Just send me an email. And then, of course, next week we'll have Erica Salou talking about some very helpful business strategies for organizers. So tune in next week for her. And I think people are still joining here. So I will do a little housekeeping. Basically, any questions you have, feel free to submit them into the chat or the Q&A, or if you're on Facebook, go ahead and put them into the feed there. We'll be monitoring that. We will have time at the end for a Q&A session, and we will take care of that then. And I'll wait one more moment before I introduce our speaker today. People might still be joining. I see people still joining. Okay. So today I would like to introduce Heather Nickerson. She is the co-founder and CEO of Artifact, which is a patented tech platform app. And the mission is to help you keep your memories, but let go of the stuff. And I think they do it in a really fun, colorful, creative way. It's engaging, and I think you're going to enjoy learning about this, whether it's to help your clients when they're sorting, decluttering, or downsizing, or if it's just something that for you and your family could find fun to do together. A little bit about Heather. She was the president of a private security company prior to taking on her business here. She is an author, and she was also a former analyst for the CIA, which is interesting. So I am going to pass this over to her. Take the reins here. Welcome, Heather.
Great. Thank you so much, Heather. It's a pleasure to be here this morning. Thank you all for your time. I look forward to answering any questions you have as we dive into decluttering with artifacts, how to keep the memories, stories, and histories, and let go of some of the stuff. So how I've structured the presentation today, we're going to have a short PowerPoint that gives you some visuals and some things to think about. And then we're going to dive in to show you how to use our patented technology that's both web and app-based. It's super easy and, as Heather said, really fun too. And then I plan to leave plenty of questions at the end, or plenty of time at the end for all of your questions. If you do have any burning questions throughout the presentation, as Heather said, please pop them in the chat and we'll certainly address them. So without further ado, let's kick this off. So again, my name is Heather Nickerson, co-founder and CEO of Artifacts. That's artifcts.com. I'm going to move to share my screen and get the PowerPoint going. So I started my company back in December 2020, the middle of COVID. We were all home with all of our stuff, if we remember those days. What happened to me though, how many of you have had a similar reality? You've been faced with maybe it's a garage or an attic or maybe a basement full of stuff. In my case, what happened was my mother unfortunately passed away very unexpectedly and out of the blue. And as the eldest and only girl, my brother said, "Good luck with that. Let us know what happens and don't throw out anything important," which, when you think about it, was a really daunting task. How do you know what's important? How do you know what to keep? How do you even know what half of the stuff is? Stuff can't talk, photos can't talk. And that was my pain point, trying to figure out what to do with 6,000 square feet of stuff when I didn't even know what half of it was. So, how this relates writ large is that we accumulate a lot of stuff. Some of it very intentional, our most cherished items. Some of it can be accidental. Stuff accumulates. Kid artwork, clothing, books, photos, you name it. We collect it over time, and soon enough, you're staring at that giant garage full of stuff. The problem is that we're facing the greatest wealth transfer in the history of our country. The boomer generation is set to pass down to Generation X $3 trillion worth of stuff. And when you think about it, that's a lot. And it includes both tangible and intangible assets. What happens is that, again, stuff can't talk, right? So the histories, the stories, and the value are going to be lost forever because there's really no easy way to capture, preserve, and share the meaning behind all that stuff. So solution is artifacts. This is what we built, why we built it. So we are a patented mobile and web-based platform. We've built it to help you preserve the history, tell the story, and build your legacy one object at a time. As organizers, it also enables you to help your clients do just that, preserve their history, tell their story, and build their legacy as you're helping them get organized and declutter, potentially maybe even move and downsize. The beauty of artifacts is it also brings tremendous value to the individual. Whoever is artifacting has the ability not only to preserve those memories, but to also make the artifacts be very functional. And I'll talk about this and show you all how to do this further on in the presentation. But with a click of a button, you can at any point export a single artifact or your entire collection to your estate plan or to your insurance policy, ensuring that you're covered for all of life's what ifs. And it's a neat way to preserve our history. Hindsight's always great thinking back 2020. But you don't know what's going to be historically significant until years, if not decades from now. So while you're at it, while we're living and breathing and having these amazing moments in time, take a moment to artifact and preserve that memory, preserve that history. And who knows, one day it could be an important piece of what we look back on over the years. So since the presentation is for continuing education credit, I will stop here and note the first key word is stuff. So for those of you watching and listening for CEU credits, the first keyword is stuff. So how does Artifacts help you get a hold of all of your stuff and solve what we call the stuff problem, right? It's the 3,000-ton elephant in the room. It's all that stuff staring at us every day. So first and foremost, we help you keep the memories and lose the stuff. Some of you may know Matt Paxton from the hit TV show Hoarders or PBS's Legacy List. Matt is on our advisory board, and he came to us after discovering the app for himself. And he loves using artifacts because sometimes the stuff we have, the stuff we accumulate, we keep it because of an emotional connection to it. We may not have a use for the item, but we keep it because we're afraid that if we let go of the actual item, we will lose the memory or lose the story or lose the history behind it. So Matt artifacts with his clients because it enables them to capture that memory, keep the emotional history, the story all together in one place, and then let go of the actual item, enabling them to get organized, to get decluttered, and stay organized and stay decluttered. Artifacts allows you to take a photo, but also add video and audio. And this is really useful. I think within the organizing and downsizing and moving industry, a lot of advice is always, well, take a photo and get rid of the item. Again, photos can't talk. And this is what I faced with my mother. I had a bin full of photos, multiple bins. And I didn't know what they were or why she had them. Or, a couple generations removed, I didn't even know who was in the photo. So with artifacts, being able to add the story and have audio and video allows you to connect all the dots when you're working with a client, trying to piece together why does this item matter, and why does that memory, why is that history so important? Again, you can also add a short story or a memory. And the beauty of artifacts, you can go back and edit anytime. And I'll show you how to do all of this in a moment as we get into the live demo portion of this presentation. But it's a really neat way if you're working with a client on the spot and they can't remember every detail, they can always go back and add to it and edit over time, which is really nice because unlike doing a traditional photo book or even a traditional memory book, once you've made that, or even a scrapbook, once you've glued that or taped that, it's really hard to go back and add to it over time. So with artifacts, we really wanted the ability to go back and add to as new memories were made or facts or even family lore was remembered, go back and add to it because that's all an important piece of kind of the history and story behind the item. The fun thing is that once you've done this, you've added a photo, video, audio, a short story, save, and you're done. You've now made an artifact. It's that simple. We have members on our platform age 16 to 97. It's truly amazing. If you can email, if you can do Facebook, if you can Google, you can artifact. We built artifacts from the ground up to be entirely private. And this is where, by background, the working not only at the Central Intelligence Agency, but also after that, I led and grew a private security firm for 10 years. And I authored a book on how to protect your privacy. So when we built artifacts, we built it from the ground up to be private by default. Everything you ever do on artifacts is always private, unless or until you want to share. And you can privately share with your family or friends. You can also publicly share. And you may be wondering, why on earth would I publicly share anything? Great question, and one that I wondered too when we were building this platform. But working with family historians and genealogists, they love to publicly share because they're crowdsourcing facts and information they may not have. So maybe you're working with a client who has a lot of antique items and they just don't know, what is this? um, you can publicly share into a collectors group or into a forum or even into, say, a social media platform and crowdsource some of that information. But a lot of family historians love the ability to crowdsource and put together the pieces that they do not know about. So you can privately share, you can publicly share, but everything by default is always private and always yours unless and until you want to share. Artifacts is also really fun because we're app based. We have the website really robust, but we also have the app. And what we've seen is when they've artifacted, say you're working with a client and they've got a lot of kids' art, like that can be really overwhelming, right? And they're out at a social function. And of course, we all like to brag about our kids and how awesome they are. And you can quickly pull up your phone and be like, hey, Junior did this amazing painting at work or at school. You can also, pull out your phone and say, Junior won this trophy in the hockey game last weekend. Everything's right there in Artifacts. It's easily searchable, sortable. And not only do you have the photo, you can have audio and video too. So rather than scrolling through what could be thousands, if not tens of thousands of photos on your phone trying to find that one photo, it's really easy to find that one artifact and reminisce about it anytime. And also, have a little fun moment with friends and colleagues when talking about your family. And then, of course, the ultimate goal is legacy lives on. And this is the really important thing for me when I was faced with all my mother's stuff, was I wanted my daughter to know my mother's story. And my daughter was so young at the time. She was only 5 years old when we lost my mother. So she had no way of really knowing my mother's story. So with artifacts, when we go back and look at, some of grandma's jewelry or artwork or the things that we kept, the china, knowing the story, my daughter can go back and use that as a reference to piece together the bits about grandma that she wants to remember, that she may not be able to remember on her own. So that's what we say when legacy lives on. Today's presentation, since we are talking about decluttering, is I'm going to go through kind of the 9 top decluttering targets when using artifacts and give you real life examples of how, when working with a client or even tackling your own house, how you can use artifacts to help declutter these items. Um, I've divided it into kind of 3 broad categories. The first is sentimental. And some of the most, I'd say, popular or most common, I think, examples we have here. The first is That outfit, right? Maybe it's your wedding dress. Maybe it is the outfit you wore when you got your first promotion, or that collection of rock concert t-shirts from the 80s and 90s. Whatever that outfit happens to be, chances are we're probably holding on to a lot of clothing we don't actually wear or use anymore. And that can be a top decluttering target. It's great with artifacts. Take a photo not only of the piece of clothing, but also of you wearing it back in the day, or of your client if they have old photos of them in their wedding dress or at the concert. Put the dots together, help them connect it, tell the story, and then you safely have the memory preserved as the artifact, and you can get rid of the old clothing that's taking up space in closets, bureaus, and drawers. Another sentimental favorite is recipes. I am very guilty of this. I love to cook, I love to bake, and in every nook and cranny in my kitchen, I have cookbooks. I've gotten much better now that I have recipes. Rather than keeping an entire cookbook that maybe I only use for one or two recipes, I artifact the recipe and let go of the cookbook. And because I can easily sort and search via artifacts, I'm no longer thumbing through which cookbook was this and where is it and is it page 100 or page 600. I can simply type in brownies and up pops the recipe for brownies, and I'm off and running. So that's another great way if you're looking at kitchen clutter. Recipes and cookbooks can be a big target that can easily be artifacted. Also, old photos. This is a big thing with my mother. She had bins and bins, not to mention all the albums, but as we all got older as kids, the photos stopped going into albums and they went into giant plastic storage bins, which if there are any photo managers on this webinar or any photo professionals, I know it was horrible. They were not preserved as well as they should have been. But my reality was bins of photos. And like I said at the beginning, photos and stuff can't talk. So if you're able to artifact some of those old photos and clean up spaces for your clients, you can add the story about the photo. You can even have your client like record them video or audio telling their memory or what they know about that photo. And the photo can safely, along with the story, can safely live on in artifacts. And hopefully you can whittle through some of those giant plastic bins of photos. My next category for kind of our top decluttering targets is home. This is always a fun one, because you never know what you're going to discover. I think when you're working with clients, what people collect, what they accumulate, probably no two clients are exactly the same. So I've offered some broad categories here. We've heard firsthand how artifacts has really helped people. The first is furnishings. We hear this a lot from move managers who are helping people downsize. Maybe they've been in the family home for, 30, 40 years, and they have the dining room table that seats 12, or they have great grandma's antique hutch or sideboard, whatever it happens to be. But when they're downsizing into assisted living and they're going into a one bedroom, 1,000 square foot apartment, there is no way, no how that dining room table that seats 12 is ever going to fit in that space, but they're really pained to let it go because they have the memories of the family having all of their Thanksgiving meals at that table. So with artifacts, this is where with working with Matt Paxton, this is a big thing that he does, especially with those big clunky pieces of furniture. He takes a photo, maybe a couple of photos of the actual piece of furniture. He then gets his clients to tell him the story, the special memories about this table, either audio or video. And then he adds a photo that they pull from their collection of, their favorite Thanksgiving meal, or maybe it was a Mother's Day brunch, whatever it happens to be. He adds a photo from back in the day. So you've now pieced together the photos of the actual object, be it, let's say, the dining room table, a video or audio of your client telling you like why this matters and the sweet memories that go with it. And then a photo, a vintage photo from the whole family around that dining room table. And after they've done all that and the client has told their story, and they know that it's safe on artifacts, like that table lives on forever in artifacts, they're able to let the table go. And it facilitates being able to move on, especially again, downsizing into a smaller space, letting go of some of those larger pieces of furniture that you may want to hold on to for the emotional value, but functionally they no longer serve the purpose they once did. Another big target on the home front are books. My mother was an avid reader, and no exaggeration, I had over 2,000 books to figure out what on earth to do with. Books were tucked in nooks and crannies in her house, on top of kitchen cabinets, tucked into the laundry room shelving, even everywhere. And for me, at the end of the day, the one thing I wish I knew was what my mother's favorite book was. I had absolutely no idea. And again, living in a 2,000 square foot DC row home, there was no way 6,000 square feet of stuff was ever going to make it into my house. So I had to choose, and a very hard thing for me were letting go of all the books because I knew that she loved them, but I didn't know which ones she loved the most. So if you're working with a client who has a rather large book collection, it's a great way to maybe artifact some of the special ones, their favorites or most memorable, or maybe the books they always read to their kid each evening before bed. You can even record your client reading a snippet from the book. My co-founder's done this with her daughter and all the poetry books they had. She took a photo of the books and then she read the favorite poems from the book. So the daughter always has her voice, her mom's voice, reading the poems along with as part of the artifact of the books. And in the end, they freed up a lot of shelf space for the books, her teenage daughter was now reading and now interested in. So books is a great target for decluttering with artifacts. Last but not least, decor and decorations. I think this is a category that can very quickly be outdated as styles come and go and change very frequently. But I think there's also a lot of memories tied to decor. And think about holiday decor. Even myself, I have things that I no longer put out, but I keep in my holiday bin. And I've gotten much better with artifacts where I now, this past year especially, I took everything out. I took a hard look at it all. And the things that I wasn't actually going to use anymore, I artifacted. And I included the photos and the stories and even photos of, back in the day when we used those items as part of the artifact, shared it with my family so everyone could have the memory and could reminisce about it. But then I was able to part with the items and I freed up, in my small space, I freed up an entire bin worth of holiday items, which for us was a huge win. So decor and decorations are another great target when using artifacts. And our last category of decluttering with artifacts is kid stuff. And this may not apply to everyone, since not everyone has kids, or maybe you're not working with a client who has kids. But if you do have kids, or you are working on an organization project for clients who've got a lot of kid stuff, kid stuff is great for artifacting because speaking as a parent, we hold on a lot to a lot of stuff because of the memories, because of the emotions, the sentiment. And we don't let go because we're afraid if we let go of the item, we're going to forget about the actual memory or forget about the story that goes with it. So the top three under kid stuff, artwork is one. When my daughter was younger, every day she came through the front door with a piece of art, and I dutifully saved everything she ever created in art class until I got artifacts. And one of the first things I did with artifacts was I went through my kid art bin. It was actually bins and I artifacted her items. And she was still young enough and close enough to, when she made them, I asked her, like, hey, sweetie, tell me about this. Why did you make this item? And I've got a couple I'll show you in a moment that are laugh out loud funny. And she would tell me the story in her oh so sweet child voice. So not only did I get the story behind the item, but I also got an audio of her telling me about it. And then I was able to guilt-free let go of that artwork. So I got what was two very large underbed bins down to a single 8 by 11 um, small plastic bin that I now keep the most precious items, some of her handwritten cards and letters from when she was learning to write or her first ever finger painting. But I no longer keep everything. So kit artwork is a great way to target the clutter and keep the memories, but get rid of some of that stuff. Another thing is stuffed animals. We had folks write into us to share their experience last year when their daughter, she was entering her tween years, was really torn, doing a big room makeover, and didn't know what to do with the stuffies because she loved them and had the memories, but she also didn't want them in her teen room. So her parents were thinking about, well, do we take up half a closet worth of stuffed animals? Like, what do we do here? And they decided to artifact, and they artifacted with her. And they were so happy because after artifacting, and she did each animal, and I guess told a story about each animal. And I don't know, I think they might have videoed her as well. So she'd have that kind of as a time capsule later on. But they were able to get rid of the stuffed animals and it saved them, like they told us. It was an entire, like half a closet's worth of stuffies. So that's another great way if you're going to be decluttering stuffed animals, you can keep the memories and let go of the actual stuffies with artifacts. And last but not least, sports stuff. We all have it. Those trophies, those ribbons, they take up a lot of space. And usually a couple of years down the road, the child may have moved on to a different activity or a different sport, and there's memories associated with it, and probably some good photos too. But the trophies themselves have very little value at that point, other than, again, the sentimental heart value. So being able to artifact, my husband, I'll give him a lot of credit. When I say we had bureaus full of swim team trophies, we really had bureaus full of swim team trophies, an enormous amount. And he went through and artifacted all of them. And when we downsized, we were able to let go of the old swim trophies, but keep the memories and add to it the photos and some old vintage videos that really told the story of this is the moment in time when the kids did swimming. Fabulous. So these are the top three categories for decluttering with artifacts. I'm going to stop sharing this screen and move over into the live demo portion of this. Heather, are there any questions while I move between screens? Oh, and I forgot to say the last keyword, or not last, the second to last keyword for our presentation today um, is, let me get that to make sure we don't forget, um, legacy. So second keyword of the day is legacy.
I guess one question, if you want to take a question now, would be when you are artifacting something, could you do like a video snippet and include that with photos of the item instead of like a blurb of
Yes.
writing?
Mhm. Yep, the short answer is yes, and I'll show you how to do that as we get into the live demo portion, but you can include photo, video, audio. You can also talk to text if you don't want to write a long or lengthy story. Hit the microphone on the app and talk to text. So there's many ways you can document that piece of it as you're working with clients or even working with your own family. So this is our landing page. Everything I'm going to show you today, you can also do on our app. I want to point out a couple of key resources for you all being organizers. One thing we have are our free checklist. If you click the link here, we've got over a dozen different fun checklists. We call them inspiration lists. But if you're working with a client, we even have one dedicated just to decluttering in general. But if you have a client with old photos, or maybe it's baby stuff, or maybe it's jewelry or sports memorabilia, you can download any of these collections and you have a checklist which you can give to your client before the meeting or after the meeting. Give it to them as a to-do list to get ready or a follow-up list after the fact. But they're really fun resources. We've heard time and again how much our organizers and downsizers love using the checklists to make the job a little bit more fun and interactive, but also it's a great way to add billable hours to your business. If you're spending time artifacting with the client as part of what the services you're doing for them and with them, that equates to billable hours on your end. We've heard again from organizers and downsizers alike, they can add anywhere from half a day to sometimes even multiple days artifacting with clients. And the clients love it. Some have tears in their eyes after you've done this with them because no one stopped to ask them, the stories behind their stuff or why does it matter? And they're, again, as Matt Paxton likes to say, once they've artifacted, they can let go of the item. So if you're, again, organizing, decluttering, downsizing, it's a great way to help your clients help themselves by letting go of some of that stuff. So we covered the three key categories of artifacts. I am logged in into my account. So I cheated. I did log in before the webinar started. I'm now over into my favorites. I wanted to show you some examples of the different categories we talk about so you can visualize what does an artifact actually looks like. I mentioned kit art. This is one of my favorite artifacts, and it's really funny. I had kept the ceramic pizza slice in the art bin under the bed. And when I pulled out the art bin years later, once we had artifacts, I was scratching my head like, why on earth did my daughter make a ceramic pizza slice? And I had my hand over the trash can ready to toss it. And I was like, wait a sec. I called her and I was like, hey, sweetie, tell me about this pizza slice. I don't know why I saved it. And she, in her very sweet kid voice, said, well, they were supposed to make a cup or a dish or a vase, but she was really, really hungry and craving pizza. So she made pizza. And I just thought that was the funniest thing. And I artifacted it. And then, yes, I did toss the pizza slice. It's no longer taking up space under my bed, but I saved the memory and the moment for her. We talked about kids' sports stuff. So this is my daughter is an equestrian. And her first horse show ever, she got second and fourth place, which was amazing. So we documented the story and the memory for her. I have the ribbons, I have the photo, I even have the video of her on the horse. And then I have the video of her after the show when she was very frustrated at being so windy, told me how she felt. So I put that all together. And now that she's done many more horse shows and has her first place and second place ribbons, I don't have to keep every ribbon she ever wins, but I do get to keep the memories here in Artifacts. I want to expand this to show you when you make an artifact, and I'll show you how to do this in a moment, but you can add the story, you can add details, you can make custom tags. I keep saying that artifacts are easily searchable and easy to find. You can make a custom tag that takes you to whatever it is you're looking for. So anything I artifact from my daughter, I have a tag called That's My Girl. And if I click on this tag, I go to all the artifacts I've tagged with That's My Girl. And I can quickly see everything and anything my daughter has made or done over the years that I have artifacted. And it's a very large collection. I'm going to pop back over to my favorites to show you some of the other categories. We mentioned stuffed animals. This is actually one my daughter did on her own. She artifacted her stuffed bunny collection, and then she parted with the bunnies as she did her own big girl room. Cards and old photos. This is one I am guilty. I like to say I'm a sentimental minimalist. My husband is definitely a maximalist. But I used to have shoe boxes full of cards in my closet. And now that I have artifacts, I tend to artifact the cards, and then I only keep the really monumental ones, like the key birthdays or milestones. But in this case, it was great. I was able to artifact some of our old Valentine's Day cards. I had the stories. I had, for me, seeing my husband's handwriting really makes me smile. So I had each card and the handwriting and the notes inside. So I can remember again all the special moments and details, but I didn't have to keep the entire box of Valentine's Day cards now. I was able to let go of the box of cards and free up more space in my closet. Also, similarly, we talked about books, right? This is an example of you heard I love cookbooks. I also am obsessed with all things Danish, having lived there in college. So for Christmas one year, my daughter got me these books, and they were the first, real Christmas gift she ever got me with her own money, and it was really special. And I may not remember all that years from now, but I've got it artifacted here, which is really sweet. Um, Another category we talked about was old photos. And again, photos can't talk. Even one generation removed, someone may not know who's in the photo. In this case, I artifacted an old photo of my mother. And my daughter, when she looked at this photo, she asked me, "Who is this?" And I told her it's grandma. And she was shocked because she had never seen, grandma with long hair. As far as she knew, grandma only ever had short hair. So she was blown away that this could be her grandmother. But again, by artifacting the story, my daughter now knows this is one of the photos we keep of my mother, and it's her high school portrait, and the story goes on from there. So it's a great way, again, to combine the stories and the details with the actual artifacts. On the home front, since we're talking to organizers, and I myself love being well organized, when you're artifacting some of those furnishings or some of the items, maybe the client's actually going to keep if they downsize into assisted living, or even if they're not, if they decide they're going to sell something, you can within artifacts attach documentation such as receipts, which is a great way to ensure everything is all in one place. So in this case, these are the champagne glasses. There's a fun story behind the first pair and the second pair. And also, again, I artifacted the card that came with them and the flowers. So I have kind of all the pieces of the memory tied up here in the artifact. But then I also have, for a very functional purpose, I have the receipt. So if one day my daughter is going through my stuff and she decides she does not like these champagne glasses, she's not going to keep them, she has the original receipt, which will hopefully help her down the road decide what to do with them. I'm also with this artifact going to click into the details and show you. When you create an artifact, you have the option of adding all these details. You do not have to add them, but they are available for you to add, which helps piece together the story. The key things I want to look at are value, location, and in the future. You'll see these are padlocked. And again, I told you everything is private by default with artifacts. And I want to note with the padlock items, even if you choose to publicly share, if you're that family historian or genealogist and you're going to share into a group to try to crowdsource details, these three items will never be shared because we want to ensure there's some guardrails, some safety rails to ensure that some of the most sensitive information does remain private, even if you choose to share. Location I want to get at is really important. If you're organizing, helping clients move, maybe there's a storage unit or there's a second residence, or things are being divided among siblings or children, knowing the location of something is really important. Also, in the future, when you're doing this with your client, if you're artifacting and they're going to artifact things they are keeping and moving with them into assisted living or just keeping in their house after you've organized and cleaned and decluttered, you can also it's easy to do. I'll show you how to do it in a moment, but you can note in the future what happens. Buy, sell, donate, bequeath, keep in the family, or too late, enjoy the memory. In this case, bequeath. And I can note who's going to get it, full first name, last name, relationship, and contact information. So essentially, you're building a roadmap for your family or for your client's family. What happens next to all their stuff, which is what I wish I had years ago with my mother. I want to note briefly, I want to quickly note some of the other features. Every artifact you create, you have the ability to go back, you or your client to go back and edit. So click a button, you can go back and edit your artifact. You can also download. So if you're working with a client and say you want to do an inventory list, awesome. You do the artifacts, have the stories, the memories, the histories, the photos, the video, the audio, all is right there. You can click Excel download and download a single artifact or the entire collection. You can also do the same with CSV and PDF. When you download PDF, you get a beautiful print-worthy copy of the artifact. And I'll give you an example right here so you can see. The other thing with PDF is it includes the date, time stamp, and last edited by, which is really important when you're talking about legal or insurance purposes. So we did work with an estate planning team prior to launching Artifacts to ensure that if you export and share your artifacts with your estate planner or to your will, everything does hold up in the court of law. But this is the PDF download. You see the photos, you have all the information in the artifact, you have the date time stamped right there, and additional photos are on this page. So you could even, some downsizers actually, their clients are still very tactile. They want kind of that 3-ring binder. They'll put together an entire 3-ring binder by downloading the PDFs of the entire artifacts collection. So when the client moves into their new home, maybe they didn't take everything with them, but they have a beautiful binder of the things they didn't take to be able to reminisce and look at, as well as everything still on the app so they can easily share, sort, see. It really just depends, what does your client prefer and how do they like to view and interact with information and data. Um, the other thing is QR codes. And we've heard time and again how organizers love the QR codes. For every artifact you make, or again, your entire collection, you can make a QR code. And this is great for popping it into, if you're helping a client put things into storage. If you artifact them before you put them in storage, put the QR code on the outside of the box. The client can now scan the QR code and know exactly what's in that box. And they can also, rather than having to trek out to the storage unit, they can pull up the artifact on their mobile app or their tablet or their laptop and see it and enjoy it without having to dig through a bunch of boxes. A lot of folks use this for holiday decor. What in the world is in what box? You can also use it the way that I use it with my family is when I artifact that I'm going to keep, like a piece of artwork or jewelry or even these champagne glasses. I put that artifacts QR code right in the box with these glasses. And if I got hit by a bus tomorrow and my daughter had to go through my stuff, she could scan that QR code, know the story behind these glasses, know all the details, have access to the receipt, and be able to make an informed decision. Well, she would know I want them bequeathed to her, but she'd be able to know the history, the story, the value, the memories behind these glasses. And she also would know what's next. So QR codes are a lot of fun. We also have photo managers who they're doing a photo book for a client. Photo books can't have video and audio, so they'll make an artifact of the photo that's on that page, pop in the QR code with the photo. You go through the photo book, scan the QR code, up pops video and audio, and it brings everything to life. So we like to say, there's really no end to the way you can use the QR codes. We've heard a lot of really unique and fun examples of it. One of my favorites was a grandparent pair put together a scavenger hunt for their children during the holidays using QR codes and gave them the iPad, and so always already on the iPad and said, go have fun. It's your scavenger hunt. Look for the QR codes. And up pop with each item they found. They scanned the QR code, up pop the story, the history, even grandma and grandpa telling them why this item mattered. So you can see this is a whole, again, we covered 9 different items and across 3 categories. But for my personal collection, you can see these are some key examples of items that I have artifacted fitting into those categories. I'm going to quickly move over and show you how easy it is to make an artifact before I stop for Q&A. So you can simply click plus to add an artifact. And then when you go to add, the first time you're making an artifact, you're always going to go to quick form for ease of use. I do want to note there is full form. Full form has all those extra details you saw in some of the earlier artifacts. Not required, but simply optional. A lot of people like to start in quick form, but when they go to edit, they end up in full form. Sometimes clients love if you get them started and do kind of the quick form entry, they'll go back later on and add a longer story or add more details using the full form. So anyways, we've simply clicked the plus to add a new artifact. When I make an artifact, simply drag and drop files, upload from my device. We also custom built integrations with the most common cloud storage platforms. So Google, Box, Microsoft, and Dropbox. Again, upload photos, video, audio here. Each artifact, you can have up to 5 media files. So any combination photo, video, audio. Our max file size is 100 megabytes. So I like to say we're not trying to be YouTube. But what that means is essentially any high-res photo, we've never had an issue with photos. Audio files, typically 10 to 12 minutes long, depending on what device and what quality you've recorded them on. And videos typically between 2 and 3 minutes, again, depending on how you recorded them and on what type of device. Once you've uploaded your media files, you can then name your artifact. It could be a silly name, it could be a factual name, totally up to you. Pick a category. It could be more than one category. Say I'm artifacting my daughter's painting. So it's art, kid art, but also painting. And maybe it's her first painting she ever did. So I'll pick firsts. So there's a lot. You're not limited to a single category. We did work with experts across the industry to ensure that the categories are comprehensive. If for some reason you do not find a category that you're looking for, you can pick other artifact, and that's totally fine too. You then can enter a short description or story. And this is where, if you're working with a client, we even have a little light bulb here to ask them questions, get them going, get them thinking about what is this? Why does it matter? What do I want to include? You could have 5 words. My mother gave me this. End of story. You could have 5 paragraphs. There is no limit on the amount of text you can have. Some people simply put, photo, or they put, like vase, and then they come back because when they're doing it quick on the quick form, they come back and then later will add details to the story. Country of origin. This is one that either unknown, not applicable, or pick in your country of origin. We have this here because one of our future plans is to be able to have a map view of all your artifacts. A lot of our artifacts members have been world travelers and lots of travel mementos. So being able to see kind of an array of your artifacts across the world has been a very common request, which is why we do have that category. In the future, this is, again, it's not required, but it's a great prompt when working with your clients. There's tremendous value add in helping your clients tackle their stuff and what happens to it next. So again, sell. This is a great one. If you're working with Max Soul, do you want to sell, set a reminder? Fabulous. In 6 months from now, you'll get a reminder, contact Max Sold. You are good to go. If you want to donate, name of organization, contact email or URL. This again gives your family a roadmap. Mom wanted to donate this, and this is the charity. I never knew that charity even existed, but oh, here's their email address, or here's the webpage. Same thing with bequeath. You saw my examples of bequeathing, but first name, last name, relationship, and email address. Or maybe they just say, you know what, I want to keep it in the family. Great. At least your family now knows this is what I want to happen to it. This stays in the family. That is one more data point than they didn't have before. There's also, of course, as you wish. And then one of my favorites, too late. I already parted with it. Enjoy the memory, which is great for kit art, in my humble opinion. You also have documentation. I showed you on the champagne glasses how you can attach files, you can add documentations. You can not only attach the document, but also label it and categorize it. So it could be a warranty, receipt, certificate of authenticity, appraisal, whatever it happens to be. It's a great way, again, to attach the really functional and important documents that go with the actual item and then the very sentimental story and memory. And this is the tag field. So again, we talked about having custom tags. You have a lot of our most popular tags, but you can make up any tag you want. So I have one dedicated to my mom's recipes for all the items I inherited from her estate. I showed you the That's My Girl tag for all of my daughter stuff. There's really no limit to the imagination and the functionality of the tags. We chose to use tags other than folders because sometimes folders, if it spans two folders, you have to duplicate the item and move it from folder to folder. With tags, you could have 5 tags on an artifact. And if you search by tag, regardless of how many tags, as long as it has that tag, it still pops up. So it makes it very easy to search and to sort your artifacts. And I did note at the beginning that, again, we are always private by default. You have to actively toggle a switch to make it public. And say if you accidentally toggle that switch, that's okay. You can toggle it back and make it private again. You're always in control of your data, and your clients are always in control of their data. And then one thing I do want to note is that we do also, when working with clients, we have a lot of organizers who we have an Artifacts for Professionals page. You can access it from our website, who, when you're working with them, and you decide to use artifacts, either you gift it to them or use it part of your process. When you do this, I'm going to show you, you can have your logo appear on their artifacts homepage. So although we don't do any third-party advertising, if you gift artifacts or you work with your client with artifacts, every time they log into their artifacts account, they're going to see right here a gift from, and then your company logo right there. And we have a lot of organizers and move managers who love this feature because they may get an extra half day or couple of days artifacting with their client front. Their client then downsizes, moves, declutters, whatever is happening later in life. The client loves artifacts. They're doing their own artifacting. They come in every time they're in artifacts, they see your brand, and it was a gift from you. And we're now hearing, since we introduced this feature back in November, we are starting to hear that people tell us they're getting callbacks. So after the move or after the organization job, hey, can you come back? I really want to do some more artifacting with you now that I'm settled or now that I've got this. So it's becoming a source of recurring revenue as well, which is really, we are very happy to hear that since we do love working with our move managers and organizers. So that was a lot of information. I do want to stop and make sure there's plenty of time for questions. So I will stop at this point, but I'm happy to show other features if there are other questions. But let's stop and take questions for right now.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And I do have several questions here.
Mhm.
One is just out of curiosity, how many artifactors are there right now? Do
Great
you know?
questions. We have thousands of artifactors
Oh, wow.
across all the US, and I think now it was 12 countries and counting. I think we might have added a couple more countries over the holidays. So at least 12 countries. But I think that's closer to 14 or 15 at this point. So
That's amazing.
yeah, it's
Okay.
amazing also because we are a female founded startup and we don't there's no third party advertising on artifacts, and our advertising is all word of mouth. So we aren't, you don't see us out there. We don't have, of course, the budget to spend, but some of the big companies do in advertising, but that's not part of our, we believe in doing a really, really good work and helping people. And it's word of mouth is really, it's been amazing to see how people adopt artifacts.
Perfect. Well, Katie Richards has a question. She said, what is the best way to get a client started? Specifically, older clients that are not tech savvy. Should the organizer do the work on their behalf using the client's account? Can the account be shared for professional access?
Yes, great question. So what we've heard, and again, it's going to depend on your client, but based on kind of the not so tech savvy older client, a lot of our move managers and organizers who work with clients like that do get started with them using their account at first. So you may, depending how you price the project, work in an extra, it could be a couple hours, half day, full day, but work in the time into your pricing model, and then set aside specific time to sit down and artifact. A lot of folks find that it's very helpful to tell them this is part of our process, what we're going to be doing. There are, I can always share after the fact, there are several companies who've integrated artifacts into their service offerings on their webpage, but they refer clients back to this is the process we're going to be doing to help you get organized or help you, downsize. You will typically help them set up the account. The account will be in their name. And then you, as you do it, you're the one there that's, typing in the story, or you're taking the photos, the audio, the video, whatever it happens to be. And you're working with the client. It's more kind of a service you are providing to the client, and we're simply the tool that enables the service to happen. So think of it as part of your service offerings. Um, right now, there is not the ability to essentially to toggle in and out of going from one client account to another. I will say that feature is coming in the coming months. It was one of the most requested features we had late last year from a lot of our move managers. So we will be releasing that feature for Artifacts for professional members, probably in Q2. But right now, it's simply work with the client using their account. And then when you're done working with them, just ensure they have helped them set up a new password, and then they're good to go. And then when they, if they call you back, you can again sit down, share the account, work with them, repeat the process.
Okay, great. Maria White would like to know if organizers give Artifact to a client, do they pay the fee beyond the first year or does the client take over from there? Also, if a client wants to add more items above the limit, how do they get the next level account? I think the accounts have different levels, correct?
Yes, that is correct. And that's a great question. So typically what we've seen is that most professionals who gift artifacts and work with their clients do it only for the first year, and they give the clients the option. That said, we have started hearing that there's people are being called back to do more of this. And we just had Artifacts for Professionals member do a renewal of gifts they made the previous year, because they are finding that it's a great way to stay in touch with clients. So I think that's a personal preference of how you want to structure it. And if your client, I think the second part of this question that wasn't asked, but I'm going to address it as well. If your client's like, I loved it for the first year, but I don't want to do it myself, and I'm probably not going to, call you back to do just this, that's great. They can download their entire collection in either, any of those formats, and they will receive multiple prompts from us explaining how to do so, even in instructional video. So that way their artifacts, the work that you've done together, is never lost in cyberspace. We do not want that at all. So some people just find that they really enjoy doing it with you as the professional, but maybe they aren't going to take up the subscription themselves, but they're thrilled when they can download it. And because we don't compress any files when you upload, what they download is exactly what they uploaded. So audio and video don't come out to be a little teeny tiny square you can't see. You actually get the full audio and video. Same thing with photos too. So that's been, I think, a very easy to use process that enables people that just want kind of one and done. That's a great way to do that. Others really do enjoy adding to the collection. And once you get them started, they will be off and running. We have some members with hundreds and hundreds of artifacts, which is really neat to see. As far as the different membership plan levels, there are two levels. I should say, first and foremost, to start is completely free. Your first 5 artifacts are always free. Um, and we did this to ensure, working with Matt Paxton, and your legacy list, your 5 items. What is your legacy list? We want to make sure that anyone, anywhere can artifact their legacy list. That is critical. It shouldn't be a cost of entry barrier to preventing you from telling your story and preserving your legacy. So after your first 5 artifacts, we do have 2 paid options. The first is called Arty Light, and it's $45 a year for 30 artifacts. So if you're working with a client that has kind of a very specific, this is the target I'm working on, that's a really easy way to do. The next level is called Artifacts Unlimited, which is $119 a year, but you get unlimited artifacts, but also you get a total of 4 accounts with that. So if you're working with a client that maybe has adult children spread across the country, or grandchildren, or others, you can give them the Artifacts Unlimited. You have unlimited artifacts, but then they keep an account, and then they can choose to give 3 accounts away. So maybe they want their adult children to also have accounts, or they want to get the grandkids involved. It really depends. So I would say with Artifacts for Professionals, it's probably a 50-50 split on gifting light versus unlimited. As far as our regular membership base, it's about 95% go for Artifacts Unlimited. And I think, again, once people get started, they really enjoy doing it. So
Excellent. Anne said that was a great question. She said, I gifted Artifact and she loves it. I'm hoping she won't lose anything when she upgrades. So, and then
yep,
we have another.
if she upgrades, you do not lose anything. And I'll let you in on a little secret too. We also, if people maybe you're traveling during renewal time and you forget, we don't automatically delete. We keep for 60 days. So we want to ensure, again, we know life happens, especially working with sometimes older clientele. Maybe there's a life event, maybe a hospital or just an unforeseen circumstance. So we do ensure, we try to be really, really good humans, and we do ensure that we give you plenty of time, even if you aren't going to renew, that you have plenty of time to download your collection. That's really important to us. But on the flip side, if you're upgrading, you will not lose anything during the upgrade process.
And there's another question here. Are the fees, oh, the ones that you mentioned, your fees, are they in only US dollars or Canadian dollars? I think
Those
it's US dollars that you were mentioning.
those are only in US dollars, but we use our payment processor is Braintree, so they're able to process regardless of if you're in Canada or Europe or South America, wherever you happen to be. You're able to process payments safely and securely that way.
Excellent. So I have another question. Is there ever an opportunity to, or does anybody do this, to when you've artifact something,
Mhm.
put a website link? Like, let's say they want to link that artifact to an active blog they have, or let's say that item is for sale and they want to link it to the sales site, or even ancestry.com. I don't know, it could be anything.
That's an awesome question, Heather, and the answer is yes. We first saw this when right after we launched, the genealogy community really took off with artifacts because they were thrilled because they spent all this time and money doing family trees and they can't get the next generation to get into the family tree. They can talk to their blue in the face, and grandkids are like, yeah, it's a family tree. So they took up artifacts with gusto, and we were so honored. We actually won the 2023 Family Tree Top Genealogy Tech Tool, which was very exciting because we never thought of ourselves to be in the genealogy space. But what genealogists have taught us about our own product is there's several ways you can do this to link out to other websites. And they specifically link to Ancestry. But to your point, Heather, you can link to a Max sold site. You can link to really any site you wanted to. You can include that link, that web link, in the description in that story field. You can also, our genealogist, include it in the location field when they're looking back to the family tree, which I find is fascinating. They also sometimes, if they have, again, because we're not YouTube and our video snippets truly are snippets, they're kind of 2 to 3 minutes. If you've interviewed Grandpa and he's told you the life story and it's a 3 hour video and you have it saved on a Google Drive or you have it saved on a private YouTube account or wherever you have that saved, you can also link to that. And again, genealogists are using the location field. So they've artifacted, say, Great Grandma Anderson's rocking chair and they've got the whole story. They've got the photos of her in the chair. They've got the family history, how it came over from Sweden, whatever it happens to be. They then, in the location field, they put in a link to Great Grandma Anderson's location in the family tree. So you now can link, you can see this is the rocking chair, this is the story, this is the whole memories. And by the way, this is where Great Grandma Anderson is in that family tree. Same thing with linking to, again, a YouTube video or linking to really any kind of external, if you have a blog or if you've got whatever that happens to be, either in the story field or in the location field are two really great ways to link. Um,
Awesome.
I also thought of, I realized I didn't show, I want to quickly share my screen one more time because I wanted to show one feature that is actually used a lot with folks who are organizing and downsizing. And this is our what's it worth feature. You can click on, if you don't know, let's just go for grandma's china, right? That's always a big question. China's not usually worth a whole lot, but you can get a free valuation. So you can know, click the what's it worth button. You can know, hey, grandma's china is actually one of those rare patterns that does work and or is it still wanted or coveted and you can actually sell it. Or, yeah, grandma's china, it's a beautiful collection, but it's probably going to fetch $20. So what do you want to do with it? But that is, we worked with AARP to ensure that feature was there because one of the issues with a lot of folks who are downsizing or moving, or even with estate sales after the fact, is that sadly there is fraud and people are told, Matt Paxton has a fabulous example in his book where it's a story about a grandfather clock. And I think the client he was working with, someone told them, hey, that clock's worthless. I will take it to the dump for you for $200. And, that was a steal to get the clock out of the house. And Matt knew enough to do a little digging, and he found out that grandfather clock was actually worth $15,000 because it was made by one of those, grandfather clock masters over, I think, in Germany or Switzerland. So it's that type of, there's not always a lot of scrupulous behavior sometimes when you're dealing with, I think, some of those end of life or downsizing moments, which is why it's so important to use a professional organizer or move manager and professionals like Max Sold. But not every client does that. So that is an important feature where if you're not sure of something working with the client or they're not sure, get the free valuation and be more informed before you decide you want to sell or donate or even bequeath the item. Because if it's really valuable, it could have implications for tax purposes and estate planning purposes, depending on the value. So,
Wow, I didn't know it had that feature. That's amazing. That's good to know. One last question. I'm double checking here. One
mhm.
last question is, are there any like forums or communities that have been created from maybe some of the themes that you find? Like you talked about equestrian, and I thought, ah, my daughter too. She did, and we have bins and bins of ribbons. So I'm like,
Yes.
I love hearing about that. But I mean, the downsizers are a community, right? The amazing jewelry. I wonder, is there
Yeah.
anything like that? Do you have a Facebook page where there's forums?
So we do, what we've been doing is we've been trying to tackle those topics. We have a series called Evenings with Artifacts. So our YouTube channel and the series goes live fall and spring, and we bring in guest speakers to really ignite those conversations and dive deep into that. So a good example is this past November, we had Gina Ortega, and she dove into women's history through recipes and cookbooks. And our contingent of artifactors who are all about recipes and cookbooks were just giddy, like absolutely giddy about this. So we do try to provide to our members totally free, but these areas to have that community and to also bring to the front experts who are able to provide really practical tips and share their knowledge as well. We do have on our website, I'll quickly share my screen again. On our website, we do have, if you go over to, oops, you go over to inspiration and how we help, you can click into any of these and see real life examples. It's not a live community like Facebook, but it definitely gives you kind of some sense of like, okay, like downsizing, moving, organizing. And it gives you also specific tips for that situation you're working with. But we have kind of seen organic community and growth with our Facebook, with our arty evenings, with some of the stuff we do in person. So we're always open for ideas too. If you have like, hey, I want to start, equestrian like group, or I want someone to come talk about it, like how do you preserve those, sports memorabilia, specifically with like ribbons and trophies. Like that's all stuff we love hearing from our members, and we love being able to provide kind of that expertise to help us all tackle our stuff and ensure the memories and stories are preserved for generations to come.
Excellent. Yes, there's so much creativity that's in the air with what you're doing with this app, and I really appreciate you being here today, Heather, to let us know more and share information. And the link to the website shared.
You know what? I don't
Um,
think it was. I
so
will
you
do that
can
right
pop
now.
that into the chat. I will also put into the chat my email for anybody that needs to request a certificate for CEU or a recording, which we will send out automatically to everybody that was registered. Um,
And I
and
should say the last CEU word, I think I forgot to say that before we went into Q&A, so I am sorry about that. The last CEU word is pizza,
pizza,
for
excellent.
that ceramic pizza slice.
Perfect. Well, thank you again. We're getting so many compliments. Fabulous. Thank you, says Felicia.
Thank
And
you.
love this. And Kathy Fairchild, so helpful, said Anne. So thank you so much, Heather. And everybody remember, tune in next week for our final Get Organized Month webinar that is CEU eligible that Erica Salu will be presenting on, where she will be digging into more about how to make your business more efficient and profitable and how to save time and all that great stuff. So thank you, Heather, and thank you everybody for joining.